Hmm. Xia Xia smiled brightly. She trusted Chi Hui, but she still seemed nervous and worried. Feng Ruching had been missing for 5 years. If she were still there, Tianya would have already found her. However, they had waited for 5 years and had not given up the search, but they still did not know her whereabouts. The people in Hall of Punishment did not torture Ninluo severely for the sake of Hui Yan. Not all people could survive here. Usually, after a visit, their skin would have been half peeled off. Even though those people showed mercy, Ninluo was still half dead when she was carried out. When he saw Ninluo, who was so weak that she would faint at any moment, his heart suddenly ached, and he hurriedly ran forward, taking Ninluo from the hands of the disciples of Nine Gate. How are you? Ninluo lowered her gaze, covering the pain. She shook her head. I'm fine. You're hurt. How can you be fine? It's my bad. I did not protect you well. But do not worry. Such a thing will not happen again. Hui Yin lowered his head and clenched his fists tightly. He only had his daughter in this life. He loved her, and he wanted to protect her. Therefore, he would not let others hurt her again. Even now, Hui Yin still did not understand why Chiu Hui could not forgive his daughter. He knew that it was indeed Hui Yu's fault, but it was not a big mistake that could not be forgiven. Yu is just a small girl. How could she withstand such punishment? He took a deep breath and said, You two come over here. Take young lady to rest first, and remember to send all the spirit herbs to her, so she can recover from injuries. Me for extra chapters. Yes, master. The 2 female disciples had just passed by and stopped in their tracks after hearing Hui Yan's order and responded respectfully. Ninluo opened her mouth, wanted to say something, but she did not speak as she saw Hui Yan's worried face. Hui Yan looked at Ninluo gently. Wait for me here. I will go and ask for better spirit herbs for you. Ninluo smiled faintly. I'm fine, father. You can go now. Hui Yan handed Ninluo to the 2 female disciples and left hurriedly. After Hui Yan's figure had disappeared, the female disciples' faces turned cold, and they held Ninluo harshly. I don't know what Venerable Hui Yan thinks. It's clearly young lady Hui Yu's fault. Nan Qiyu is our 9 Gates Holy Maiden. Hui Yu is nothing compared to Holy Maiden. The servants in Hui Yan's courtyard said, since young lady Hui Yu came back 5 years ago, it was hard to serve her. And now she has offended our Holy Maiden. I do not believe that young lady Hui Yu did not mean to say in front of a child that her mother has passed away. She deliberately said it to hurt Holy Maiden. The 2 female disciples had lost their respect for Ninluo and even said that in front of her so confidently. Ninluo clenched her fists tightly. Her body was trembling. In all these years, she rarely left the courtyard, and the servants in the courtyard treated her respectfully, so she did not overthink it. Now, after this matter, she found that living as Hui Yu was not as honorable as she thought. Meanwhile, in Spirit Beast Mountain, it was silent as usual. Except for the sound of the breeze passing by, there was nothing else. Suyi stood beside the ruins. She looked at the ruined palace and became more anxious and restless. Initially, everyone could wait patiently, but in the end, no one could maintain the initial motivation. As the days passed, their spirit to search gradually sank. Suddenly, an angry voice came from the side. Suyi turned her head to look and saw Tianya grabbing a guard furiously. Dig for me. Keep digging. Why can't you find her after 5 years of searching? Why? I didn't tell you to stop. No one will stop. We must find Xing. The guard lowered his head. Sadness filled his eyes. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he could not speak. Feng Lianxing walked up to Tianya silently. Master, we can't find Sister Ruching. Impossible. Impossible. I saw her fighting with my own eyes in the palace. Even if she's not there anymore, there will be corpses. Why are she and Nan Xian suddenly missing? And the corpse of that bastard Nan Fong is nowhere to be seen. She's still alive. Search for her. Keep searching for her. Master, Feng Lianxing could not bear to dampen Tianya's hope. However, seeing Tianya becoming almost crazy, his heart ached even more. Sister Ruching is missing, and everyone is worried. Master can't sleep while the whole day. waiting for her to appear every day. But it has been 5 years. She has not returned for 5 years. Maybe she will never come back. You also know that Sister Ruching was fighting with Nan Fong and the others. But why can't we find their bodies? Have you thought about it? Master. Feng Lianqing closed his eyes in sorrow. Perhaps they have already died. Shut up. Tianya raised his hand. Fierce wind surged out of his palm, lifted Feng Lianqing's body, and threw him to the ground. He spurted out a mouthful of blood. Master, even if you beat me to death, I have to say this because I want you to come to your senses. At least, don't let Sister Ruching see you sad, and Xia Xia is waiting for us to pick her up in Nine Gate. Sister Ruching is gone, so we can't leave Xia Xia alone there. Tianya remained silent, but suddenly, Feng Chun moved as fast as the wind and landed next to Feng Lianqing. The young man's face was cold and expressionless. Me for extra chapters. He had been like this ever since Feng Ruching had disappeared. He was cold, not like a normal person. Qingqing is still alive. I can feel it. Feng Lianqing smiled bitterly. He also hoped that Feng Ruching was still alive, but after 5 years of waiting, all his hope had turned into despair. So, Feng Chun raised his hand and put his sword against Feng Lianqing's neck. Next time, if you say she is dead again, I will kill you. As the young man said these words, the air turned colder with strong, murderous intent, spreading throughout the sky. Feng Lianqing fell silent. He knew it was useless to talk to them. He got up from the ground, silently stood aside, looking at the ruins helplessly. Sister Ruching, if you are still alive, can you come back soon? I'm afraid that if we continue like this, Master will gradually lose his sanity. Tianya's eyes were bloodshot as he said in a cold voice, keep searching for her. Find her even if you have to dig 3 feet or 300 feet into the ground. I don't believe that they have disappeared from this world. As long as he believed that Feng Ruching was still alive, his granddaughter must be alive. It was just that she could not come back for the time being. Suddenly, Big Black leaped and flew into the sky, roaring. This dragon roar echoed through the sky. Its grief-filled cry carried a sense of great gloom. Suddenly, a loud booming sound exploded, shaking the ground vigorously. Everyone fell silent. Their eyes were fixed upon the ruins and filled with panic. Indeed, all of them were panicked. Tianya was shocked, and his breathing grew heavy. Suyi slowly stood up, staring at the shaking ground. The stone bricks suddenly flew all over the place. Later, everyone saw the ground crack open. This gap was getting bigger, big enough for a person to jump down. Just as the people were stunned by that crack in the ground, 2 figures rushed out. It was a woman in a red dress with a familiar face. Even her figure was familiar to them. However, for some reason, everyone felt that there was something strange with this person. It was as if the person in front of them was no longer the person they knew before. Her gaze was indifferent, expressionless. The powerful energy emitted from her causing everyone to tremble in fear. Standing next to her was a man in a white robe. He was still handsome and stunning with his long white hair. Tianya was stunned. The fear he had all these years was suddenly gone. His tears flowed from his eyes as his gaze was fixed upon the woman in front of him. For a long while, he was unable to come out of the stupor. Qing'er, is it really you? She's back. Tianya trembled. He knew it. He knew that Qing'er would certainly come back. Fortunately, he did not give up and kept waiting for her. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruching turned to Tianya, looking at him gently. She and Xian stood side by side, slowly descending from midair. She only took a few steps, but she instantly covered the distance of several meters and stood in front of Tianya. I'm back, grandfather. How long has it been now? Tianya was excited, and his voice cracked. 5 years, 5 years? Feng Ruching was shocked. So, it has been 5 years. I do not know how Xia Xia is. That little girl waited for them for 5 years and might be hiding in some place, crying again. Come on, let's go pick up Xia Xia and let's go home. Feng Ruching smiled, looking at the man next to her. Nan Xian lowered his gaze. He held Feng Ruching's hand and replied gently, All right, let's go home. From a meeting 1,000 years ago, they were destined to live and die together. They met in the previous life, but could not stay with each other till the end. In this life, they had overcome many difficulties and finally were able to see them all through together. Sui stood by and did not say a word. She looked at Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian and smiled faintly. At this moment, all the dark clouds had disappeared, revealing the light hidden in everyone's heart. Feng Lianqing looked at Feng Ruqing's return and could not help but cry happily. Sister Ruqing is back. Master will not be so crazy anymore, and the sky and land of no return is finally clear again. 9 Gate. On top of the mountain, Nan Xiyu rested her hand on her cheek, staring blankly at the sky. Ever since Nen Luo said those words to her that day, she would often sit on the mountain and stare. When she did not say anything, no one knew what she was thinking. No matter how Qiu Hui tried to comfort her, it did not help. She would stay there for the whole day, except for meal times, and would not leave the mountain. Xia Xia. A hand rested on Xia Xia's shoulder. Her voice was gentle, with a little relief. Xia Xia, it's cold here. Let's go back and rest. If you get sick, your parents would be heartbroken when they come back. Aunt Xiu. Xia Xia turned around, her eyes glistening with a light as bright as the stars in the sky. When do you think father and mother will return? Qiu Hu's heart ached. When they come back, Tianyao will surely tell me first. Xia Xia, it's useless for you to wait here. Go back to your room with me to rest. Xia Xia smiled. Then, I will wait for them here. They'll go when they come back. But if they don't come back, I will sit here all the time. When the little girl turned and continued gazing at the clear sky. There was light in her eyes, bright and dark, but it made Qiu Hu's heart suddenly seize up. If Hui Yu did not say those words to Xia Xia that day, she would not become like this. And even though Xia Xia did not say anything, everyone knew that she was very anxious, therefore, she would rather keep waiting here than leave. Qiu Hui lowered her gaze. A cold light flashed in her eyes as she stroked the little girl's head gently. Me for extra chapters. Xia Xia, you have to trust me and trust them. Anything can happen to anyone in this world, but not to them. Xia Xia was slightly stunned. She looked at Qiu Hui, pursed her lips, and said, I know, but I want to wait for them. I'm afraid that they will have to spend time to find me if they come to me. If I sit in a higher place, they will be able to spot me easily. One Qiu Hui looked at Xia Xia's pink face and sighed helplessly. You can wait for them here, but you must prioritize your health. Otherwise, they would be sad if they come back and meet you. I understand, Aunt Qiu. Xia Xia smiled. Then she turned to the sky again, her hand on her cheek as she sat in a daze. Qiu Hui did not say more. She took one last look at Xia Xia, turned around, and walked down. At the mountain's base, a female disciple saw Qiu Hui and hurriedly ran to her. Master, these few days, Hui Yu. Qiu Hui paused, hiding the cold light in her eyes. No, it's Nan Luo. What is she doing? She believed in Xia Xia's intuition. Since Xia Xia said she was Nan Luo, that must be. Master, these few days, young lady Hui Yu has not left the room at all. I only heard that recently her temper is not very good. The rest. I'm not sure, the female disciple said respectfully. Qiu Hu's eyes glowed sardonically as she sneered. Continue to keep an eye on her. She has had a hard time in 9 Gate now. I don't believe she won't do anything. Nan Luo can sit back and watch the Nan family be destroyed. It's obvious that she's hiding something. Yes, Master, the female disciple answered respectfully. Recently, Nan Luo did not have time to cause trouble. Other than recuperating from her injuries, she just sat around and did nothing. The most outrageous thing she did was scolding the servants in the courtyard without any reason. Every time Hui Yin entered the room, she only saw Nan Luo sitting expressionlessly. Looking at Nan Luo with such an expression, Hui Yin was heartbroken, but he said nothing, turned around, and left. His daughter indeed had made a mistake, but what Qiu Hui had done was a bit too much to her. This was something that he could never forgive in his life. When Hui Yin left, A cold light flashed in Nan Luo's eyes. She raised her eyes to look at Hui Yan's departing figure. In the past few days, Chiu Hui's mountain was strictly guarded. No one was allowed to approach Holy Maiden, and she did not have the opportunity to see Nan Qiyu. However, the presence of Nan Qiyu was like a thorn viciously stabbed in her heart, making her a little painful. She took a deep breath and finally walked toward the door of the room. She opened it slowly and looked outside, frowning. No matter what, I won't let Nan Qiyu go. If she's gone, Nine Gate will be peaceful again, and no one will make me feel bad anymore, young lady. Two servants walked up to Nan Luo and said coldly, Master has ordered that you cannot go out. Nan Luo stopped in her tracks, a cold smile hanging on the corner of her lips. I'm just walking around the courtyard. Master said that you cannot go anywhere. The servant girl's tone was cold, and she even looked at Nan Luo, annoyed. Nan Luo's gaze sank. She turned back and slammed the door with a bang. Her voice was filled with anger, echoing through the doorway. Now the servants here are so arrogant. When father comes, I will tell him how you treat me. I just want to walk around the courtyard. It's such a simple request, and it's not like I'm going to run away. I'm a human, not some piece of furniture that should be locked up in the house all day long. The servants stood at the door coldly and were not afraid of Nan Luo's words. Me for extra chapters. They would only obey the orders from their master. Moreover, Nan Luo had made a big mistake, breaking the orders and gone to their holy maiden to spew nonsense. No wonder she would have such a fate. Nan Luo threw all the porcelain on the table to the floor, and her gaze was fierce. You think you can lock me up like this? No. No one can stop me from doing what I want to do. Nan Luo was cautious in every way when she first came to Nine Gate. She received the best treatment in Nine Gate, and she loved it. Even if there was more than one master in Nine Gate, she still felt satisfied because Hui Yan loved her. However, now, she had stayed at Nine Gate for quite a long time. As time passed, she gradually felt dissatisfied with everything. She wanted more. The appearance of Nan Qiyu had raised a sense of threat in her heart. Everyone from Nine Gate respected and admired Nan Qiyu. It was a treatment that she had never received before. Why? Why should Nan Qiyu receive such a treatment here? Therefore, she had been looking for an opportunity, and after waiting for 5 years, she had finally found it. Unfortunately, she did not think it through. At least, she should have waited for venerable Chiu Hui to leave before she made her move. By the time Chiu Hui returned, everything had become difficult. Her father was a Nine-Gate venerable. Even if she made an irreparable mistake, he would not be too harsh with her. So, she had indeed made a wrong move back then. Creak! The door was pushed open again. Nan Luo looked up and saw Hui Yan standing in her doorway. Tears suddenly flowed from her eyes, and her eyes were red. Nan Luo raised her hand, wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, and smiled faintly. Father, didn't you come just now? Why did you come again? Hui Yan sighed lightly. His daughter's state this time made him feel at ease. However, he was afraid that if he let her go out, Chiu Hui would have an excuse to find her trouble again. He only had a daughter, and he would protect her at any cost. How could he allow someone to bully her? However, he was not the only one who could decide in Nine Gate. He had no choice but to punish his daughter according to the rules. Your father, you don't have to say anything more. I understand. Nan Luo shook her head and smiled bitterly. You did it all for my good. How can I not understand your good intentions? You can lock me in the house for the rest of my life. You don't have to worry about me. Initially, Hui Yan's heart was full of guilt, and after hearing Nan Luo's words, his heart hurt even more and was filled with sorrow. Me for extra chapters. You are sorry, Nan Luo smiled, her eyes filled with bitterness. Father, you don't need to feel guilty. I deserve it. I have just recovered from my injuries in the past few days. That's why I planned to go out for a walk. I didn't expect that I can't even walk around the courtyard. There was bitterness on Nan Luo's lips, and a trace of disappointment appeared in her eyes. Hui Yan opened his mouth, staring at Nan Luo's expressionless face. His heart finally softened a bit. I'll talk to the servants later. You can walk freely here, but don't go out of the courtyard. Otherwise, I'm afraid Chiu Hui will find trouble with you. Nan Yu is now her treasure. No one is allowed to disturb her. Even if you haven't said those things to Nan Yu, I'm afraid she would have continued to find your mistakes. Nan Luo was slightly happy, but her face remained expressionless. Father, it's all right. I'm fine here. I'm afraid that Venerable Chiu Hui will blame you. Hui Yan's old face sank. He snorted coldly. Nine Gate will not listen to her decision alone. Do you think the others have no right to speak out? Yes, it was your fault in the first place. But I have guaranteed that you will not go near Nan Yu. You can only walk around here. If she still disagrees, don't blame me for being rude. Nan Luo lowered her gaze, hiding the coldness in them. Even if her father still would not let her out, at least she had the right to leave the room. It was not easy to fight for this right. So, she narrowed her eyes, and a cold light flashed in them. As long as she was allowed to leave the room, she would eventually find a chance to approach Nan Yu. Xia. On top of the mountain, a familiar voice came from behind Xia. Xia turned to look and saw Tang Yin behind her. Tang Yin was a little heartbroken as she looked at Xia's current state, but she also understood Xia's worry at this moment. However, thinking of the news just received, Tang Yin could not help but rush up to Xia. There's news just now from Spirit Beast Mountain. It may be related to your parents, but I'm still not clear about it. I am waiting for the people from Tianya's manor to send a message. Tang Yin raised his hand and touched Xia's head. 5 years have passed. Xia has also grown up quite a bit, but Xiao Qing, when she will return? Tang Yin lowered her gaze, hiding the worry in her eyes. A touch of helplessness flashed across her delicate and pretty little face. Really? Xia's eyes lit up for a moment, looking at Tang Yin unblinkingly. Tang Yin nodded. Well, have I ever lied to you? Xiao Qing is so powerful, she will be fine. Moreover, the vixen is protecting her. Hearing these words, Xia's heart that was tense these days suddenly felt relieved. She smiled happily, and her eyes lit up as bright as stars. Aunt Tang never lies. That means Mother has come back? This news filled her heart with joy as she headed down the mountain. Xia, where are you going? I want to go home. Like a little butterfly, Xia fluttered toward the mountain's base. Tang Yin looked at this little one and shook her head helplessly. She then stood up and followed her smilingly. Just thinking of the news that came today, she could not help but smile happily. Her big, beautiful eyes shined as brightly as the sun. Nine Gate was huge. Tang Yin and Xia rarely left the mountain, so they did not know where to go. Tang Yin scratched her head and looked sideways at Xia. How about we wait for Venerable Chiu Hui to come back before we go? I want to see Mother. Me for extra chapters. Xia was firm and stubborn. She had not seen her father and mother for a long time. She was like an abandoned child, living alone in this strange place. If Tang Yin did not let her go home, she would rather go back to Tianya's manor alone and wait there than stay in this strange Nine Gate. However, just now, Aunt Tang said there's news from Spirit Beast Mountain. Maybe Father and Mother are back? This news filled Xia with joy. How could she continue to stay in this place? Her heart had long drifted back to Tianya's manor, no longer willing to stay a moment longer in Nine Gate. Tang Yin looked at Xia and did not stop her. Xia has not seen Xiao Qing for many years. It's normal if she wants to find her now. No need to stop her. Then, let's go. I haven't seen Xiao Qing for a long time either. Xia nodded slightly. She paused again and asked, Aunt Tang, where's Uncle Nalen? Oh, don't mind him. We can find Xiao Qing by ourselves. Tang Yin pouted and said unconcernedly. Along the way, the people of Nine Gate were polite to Xia and Tang Yin. All knew Xia's status within Nine Gate. Xia had not been in contact with people for many years, so she was quite uncomfortable seeing these enthusiastic female disciples. Those female disciples all walked together, but they did not dare to get too close to Xia. They only dared to look at her from a distance with a certain glint in their eyes. Xia was well known to everyone in Nine Gate. Therefore, these female disciples were curious about her, Yet no one dared to go near her recklessly due to Chiu Hu's previous order. Aunt Tang. Xia Xia raised her hand and grabbed Tang Yin's sleeve. Let's hurry up and find Mother. All right. Tang Yin nodded and turned to look at the group of female disciples. Do you know how to leave the mountain? Leave the mountain? The female disciples froze for a moment. Does the holy maiden want to go down the mountain? But Master said you're not allowed to leave Nine Gate. There were still countless dangers outside, and if something happened to Holy Maiden after she left, everyone would be punished severely. Maiden Tang, why don't we wait for Venerable Chiu Hui to return? She will send you away when the time comes. Tang Yin looked at the group of female disciples and understood that it was useless to ask them because they would never tell the way down the mountain. So, she simply stopped talking and smiled brightly. It's fine. We'll just ask casually. You can continue with your work, and he'll take Xia Xia around. But the female disciple was a little worried. Venerable Chiu Hui also said that Xia Xia was not allowed to leave the mountain when she was not around. However, Maiden Tang is protecting her now, and Hui Yu is locked up. It should be fine, right? I know what you're worried about. I'm with her, so no one dares to bully Xia Xia. Tang Yin swore and patted her chest. Besides, this is Nine Gate. No one dares to seek death by hurting Xia Xia. At most, they would only curse her, but Tang Yin, have never lost in terms of cursing. All right. Only then did the female disciples breathe a sigh of relief and walked away. Indeed, with Tang Yin accompanying Xia Xia, no one dared to touch their holy maiden. Furthermore, Xia Xia was still young, but she was not the kind that could be bullied easily. Therefore, there was no need to restrict her freedom too much for extra chapters. Let's go. Tang Yin held Xia Xia's hand and smiled brightly. When the female disciples left, she took Xia Xia and continued to leave the mountain. Nine Gate was surrounded by 9 mountains, hence it was called Nine Gate. The gate to leave Nine Gate was on top of one of the mountains. However, the disciples of Nine Gate were too timid to tell them the way out, so Tang Yin did not continue to ask, but took Xia Xia to find the way one by one mountain. They knew that they would find it soon. Aunt Tang, Xia Xia looked at Tang Yin. Nine Gate is too big. How much longer do we have to look? If Father and Mother come back, will they go to Aunt Chiu's place to look for us? What if we miss them? Tang Yin was stunned. She thought about it and pondered for a moment. I don't think so. Moreover, it takes some time for Xiao Qing to come back. She will not be here in such a short time. But if she is fast enough, we should meet her at the main gate. She was not quite sure if Feng Ruqing and Nanxian had really returned. What if was she just overthinking? Tang Yin shook her head helplessly, a bitter smile on her lips. 5 years. She really missed her. Xia Xia, when your mother comes back, you must not tell her that I've been muddling through these years. You have to tell her that I've worked hard on my cultivation. Otherwise, your mother will scold me. Tang Yin pouted and said with a serious expression. All right, Aunt Tang. Xia Xia had on an innocent smile that was as bright as a star. Let's go. Tang Yin let go of Xia Xia's hand and smiled faintly as she slowly stepped forward. However, when she saw that Xia Xia did not come over, she turned her head and looked at the little girl with a bright smile. Xia Xia, trust me. I can take you out of here with my intuition. But Tang Yin's face changed dramatically when she saw a figure rushing towards Xia Xia. Xia Xia was stunned, looking at this figure with a blank and doubtful gaze. Nan Luo never thought that Xia Xia would send herself to the door. There was a cold smile on her lips, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. Xia Xia's eyes widened, looking at Nan Luo, who rushed toward her. She frowned as she took a few steps back. However, Nan Luo was faster than her. A fierce wind surged out of Nan Luo's palm and landed on Xia Xia's chest. Fortunately, Tang Yin was extremely fast. When Nan Luo continued to strike, she was already in front of Nan Luo when she kicked her away. Nan Luo lowered her head, hiding the cold light in her eyes. She was not expecting herself to deal with Xia Xia alone, and Tang Yin's reaction was also within her expectation. Xia Xia. Tang Yin ran up to Xia Xia, panicking. Are you all right? The little girl blinked blankly and shook her head. "I'm fine." Looking at Xia Xia, Tang Yin said with a hint of hatred, "Why did you stand there for? Why didn't you make a move?" Oh, Xia Xia scratched the back of her head. "I was just thinking, didn't the people from Nine Gates say that she was locked up? Why is she still here?" "So, Tang Yin helped Xia Xia up, looking at the little girl looking confused. She then turned to Nan Luo with eyes filled with murderous intent. "Me for extra chapters. You seek death." In an instant, she was already in front of Nan Luo, picking her up by her lapel angrily. "How dare you attack Xia Xia?" Slap! Tang Yin slapped Nan Luo's face fiercely. In an instant, half of her face was red and swollen with a cold smile on her lips. "Beat me to death if you can. Do it today. You are useless trash." Tang Yin's entire body exploded with anger. She picked up Nan Luo by her lapel and smashed her to the ground viciously. Nan Luo spat blood and smiled coldly. "Is that the only thing you can do? I just hit her lightly. But once I get the chance, I will never let her go again." The existence of this little girl was a thorn in her heart. She would think of Feng Ruching and how Feng Ruching treated her back then. Since the Nan family no longer existed, she was no longer in danger, and she had to settle the total score with these people. Tang Yin's face darkened. She dragged Nan Luo before her again and slapped her face. Blood hung in the corner of Nan Luo's mouth. Her gaze remained stubborn and fearless, as if Tang Yin was nothing to her at all. Chapter 1999. Huiyan's Anger. As Venerable Chiu Hui said before, "You are Nan Luo of the Nan family." Tang Yin sneered and looked at Nan Luo in front of her. Nan Luo's heart skipped a beat as a flash of panic flashed in her eyes, and she bit her lip hard. How did Tang Yin know about this matter? No. Has Venerable Chiu Hui sensed that I'm not Huiyu? Nan Luo clenched her fists tightly. A light flashed in her eyes as she got up from the ground and rushed towards Xia Xia. This time Xia Xia did not stand still. She reacted quickly and kicked Nan Luo. Even though she was still young, the force of this kick was not quite powerful, sending Nan Luo flying away. Tang Yin burst out in anger. This bitch keeps attacking Xia Xia. I have to do something. Who knows what this bitch is planning? Therefore, Tang Yin drew out her longsword and rushed toward Nan Luo. A cold light flashed on the longsword. However, Nan Luo looked into Tang Yin's eyes fearlessly, like all this had been expected. She smirked. It seems like they have fallen into the trap. Just as Tang Yin was about to reach Nan Luo, an angry voice came from the sky. "Stop!" Boom! A powerful force came out of nowhere and landed hard on Tang Yin's chest, sending her flying backward. She spurted a mouthful of blood, and her face turned pale. "Aunt Tang!" Xia Xia was shocked and rushed toward Tang Yin, her big eyes filled with worry. "Aunt Tang, are you hurt?" Tang Yin looked at Xia Xia's face. Her heart softened, and all the pain she had disappeared. "I'm fine. It doesn't hurt." Tang Yin pulled Xia Xia in her arms and looked up at the old man, who came from the sky. "Me for extra chapters." Huiyan's old face, filled with anger, slowly landed from the sky. The murderous intent in his eyes was so strong that it spread over the entire mountain. "Father!" The moment she saw Huiyan, Nan Luo's tears flowed from her eyes, filled with panic. "I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have told the Holy Maiden about her mother's death that day. I have paid the price for my actions. But why? Why won't they let me go? They came here to get me. Father, I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been nosy. I just begged the Holy Maiden to let me go. I don't want to die." Looking at his daughter's panicked look, Huiyan became angrier. It was just a small matter, and Nan Qiyu did not suffer any harm. Chiu Hui was so unforgiving that she had sent Yer to Hall of Punishment, asked him to lock his daughter up, and would not let her leave this mountain at all. However, these people still did not let her go. They even took advantage of when he was not around to go to his daughter to kill. Hui was his only daughter, the one he had to protect even with his life. "Damn it! Anyone who tries to touch my daughter deserves to die. Besides, it was indeed Yuer's fault before. But this time, what did she do wrong? Why did they bully her to such an extent? I don't care if you're the granddaughter of Tianya or holy maiden of Nine Gate. Huiyin looked at Xia Xia expressionlessly. I will not let go of all those who touch my daughter, even if Nine Gate has to make me pay for the price hurting you. He'll admit it, but now I must take revenge for my daughter. He'll never allow anyone to bully her like this. Tang Yin's face changed dramatically. Venerable Qiu Hui and the others were not here. If they fought, she knew that she was not a match for this old man. Xia Xia, you leave first and find Venerable Qiu Hui. Her eyes flashed with determination. He'll hold these people back. Xia Xia looked at Tang Yin and understood that she would only drag Tang Yin down if she stayed now. So, without any hesitation, she turned around and wanted to leave. However, Huiyin would not give Xia Xia the chance to leave. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he rushed towards Xia Xia. Tang Yin was shocked. She wanted to reach out to block him, but Huiyin's fist had already landed heavily on Tang Yin's chest. In an instant, Tang Yin's body flew away as she spat blood again and stained the ground red. It seemed that she had underestimated this old man's strength. The power he had was not something that she could resist. Xia Xia, go. Go quickly. As Tang Yin looked up, he saw Huiyin chasing after Xia Xia with a hideous look in his eyes. What had happened to my daughter was all because of this little bitch Xia Xia. Tang Yin is just being used by Xia Xia. Therefore, he would vent all his resentment on Xia Xia, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Nan Luo looked at Huiyin, who rushed towards Xia Xia. She smiled coldly. She already knew that Qiu Hui was not in Nine Gate today, so this time no one would come to save Xia Xia. By then, Xia Xia would already be dead, and her father was still a member of Nine Gate. Nine Gate would not kill her father for someone already dead. Even if Qiu Hui wanted to kill him, it would be impossible to overcome her father with her strength alone. Therefore, Ninluo was not worried at all. She smirked as she looked at Xia Xia provocatively. Boom! Suddenly, a force came out of nowhere, descending from the sky and landing fiercely on Huiyin's body. Huiyin was defenseless under this sudden attack. His body was like an arrow flying backward before he fell to the ground, spitting blood with shock in his eyes. Me for extra chapters. Meanwhile, the sky was dark as countless people stood in the sky. Nanluo looked up and froze. A wave of panic invaded her, engulfing her heart, making her almost lose her mind. Qiu Hui, who was thought to have left, had returned. She stood in the air, with anger in her eyes, staring at them coldly. The ones next to Qiu Hui were the figures that Nanluo was so familiar with. It was a woman in a long red dress, stunningly beautiful, and a man in long white hair with eyes filled with murderous intent. Behind them stood Tianya, Feng Lianxing, Suyi, and the others. Nanluo trembled, panicked. Why? How did they come back? Feng Ruqing is dead. Why is she back? Nanluo closed her eyes. Her heart was strewn with despair, and her face was pale. Mother! Xia Xia's tears flowed from her eyes and soaked her face. She cried out in pain and pounced toward Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian. Father! Mother! Xia Xia's big eyes were red from crying. She jumped into Feng Ruqing's arms and hugged her tightly. Mother, I missed you so much. I really missed you. 5 years. Exactly 5 years. She had waited for her for 5 whole years. Fortunately, she finally came back. Feng Ruqing lowered her gaze and hugged the little girl until the little girl stopped crying. She then raised her eyes to look at these people in front of her with monstrous anger. Hee! Huiyin sneered and got up from the ground. This time, I don't think I'm at fault. Last time it was indeed my daughter who did something wrong. I admitted it and let her be punished. But why won't these people let her go? They took advantage of my absence and wanted to kill my daughter. Since that's the case, then I had to strike first. Nonsense. Tang Yin stood up. Her eyes were filled with anger. I just took Xia Xia and want to leave Nine Gate. Who thought that I would accidentally walk into your territory, and this bitch bullied Xia Xia as soon as she came out. There is no way I would let anyone bully her. Xia Xia wiped her eyes. Mother, I want to go home. They are all bullying me. Feng Ruching hugged Xia tightly, and as she lowered her gaze, the anger within her eyes became even more intense. The fierce wind raised and lifted her long red dress, emanating a murderous aura. Nan Luo. Feng Ruching looked at Nan Luo expressionlessly. I've only been away for 5 years, and you are now so daring to bully my daughter like this. Nan Luo trembled. She bit her lip hard. What nonsense are you talking about? Feng Ruching laughed coldly. State Preceptor, you take care of Xia. She handed the little girl in her arms to Nan Xian, landed from the sky, and walked toward Nan Luo. Hui Yin was shocked and tried to stand up, but Xiao Hui was already in front of him, not letting him take a step closer to Feng Ruching. Don't move if you don't want to die miserably. Maiden Feng's strength is no longer something you can resist. She had left Nine Gate to see if Feng Ruching had returned, but she had not gone out long before she saw this group of people from Tianya's manor, so she had turned back. However, she did not expect to see the thrilling scene right after she came back. If they had not come back in time, even just 1 second later, Xia would have died in their hands. Me for extra chapters. By then, the entire Nine Gate would have been buried with them. The anger in Xiao Hu's heart grew even greater and was about to explode. She did not understand why people would try to harm an innocent little girl again and again. Feng Ruching stopped in front of Nan Luo and looked down at the woman coldly. Nan Luo quickly took a few steps back, her face showing panic. However, behind her was the wall. There was no way to run. Nan Luo. Feng Ruching sneered. I guess Hui Yu is already dead, right? 2 souls could not occupy 1 body. When Nan Luo took her body, Hui Yu had not disappeared yet. It was just that her soul was squeezed into a corner and could not come out. But now, after such a long time, perhaps the girl had disappeared. So, Feng Ruching put her finger on Nan Luo's head. Nan Luo only felt a stabbing pain in her head. It was so painful, and she felt like her head almost exploded. That kind of intense pain was not something that ordinary people could bear. That kind of pain was not something every human could endure. Nan Luo's face changed dramatically, and her body was trembling. Stop it! Huiyan's eyes were red. He wanted to go up and stop it, but his whole body froze. His face was pale, and his gaze changed from anger to shock, trembling. A transparent soul was pulled out of his daughter's body. This soul obviously looked different from his daughter's, yet familiar enough to make his eyes even redder. Nan Luo. She was Nan Fang's daughter, and Hui Yin had seen her before. But why would Nan Luo's soul be here? Suddenly, he thought of what Venerable Qiu Hui had said before, and his face darkened. Nan Luo perhaps did not expect that Feng Ruching could directly pull out her soul from the body. Panic flashed in her eyes, and her gaze was filled with fear. No, I don't want to die. She had finally had a chance at a second life after a long time. She did not want to die here, let alone in front of Feng Ruching. Why did Feng Ruching still come back? If she didn't come back, nothing would have happened. Why is it that she is so lucky, surrounded by so many good people, yet in the end, she does not want to let me go? Nan Luo's fearful eyes flashed with resentment. She never thought she had lost anything to Feng Ruching. The only thing she did not have was her background. If she were Tianya's granddaughter, then everything that Feng Ruching had today would also be hers. In the end, it was just that she was born in the wrong body. When Nan Luo's soul was pulled out, the young girl lying on the ground also woke up in a ghostly way. Her face was pale, and she slowly opened her eyes. Her voice was so weak that it would disappear at any moment, making Hui Yin freeze. Me for extra chapters. Father, her voice, calling her father, was filled with much grievances. All these years, the person who accompanied you was not me. Nan Fang killed Nan Luo and made her forcefully possess my body, but Nan Luo was too weak to swallow me up. I have been watching in a corner, watching her behavior over the years. I wanted to tell you that she was not me, to not help her again. But I had no way. I could not get out and could only watch you defending her mistakes. Hui Yin trembled harder. His eyes were bloodshot. Perhaps what had happened today was too hard for him to accept. "Father, I have to go. I can't accompany you anymore." Nan Luo did not manage to devour her soul, but she was squeezed in a corner for so many years that her soul had weakened, and it would disappear at any time. So, when Nan Luo left the body at the moment, she had used the last of her strength to take this body back. However, it was already too late. She could no longer stay in this world after saying these words. She did not wait for Hui Yin to answer her. She then slowly closed her eyes and smiled. Perhaps she was already satisfied to see her father for the last time. Hui Yan's heart gradually sank as Hui Yu closed her eyes. It was not until half a second later that he suddenly returned to his senses and ran wildly toward the young girl on the ground. "You are..." This voice, filled with despair and grief, echoed throughout Nine Gate. All the members of Nine Gate came out of their mountains. When they saw Hui Yu's soul and Nan Luo lying on the ground, they already understood what was going on. It seems that Xiu Hui was right. What is within this body is indeed not Hui Yu. And no, Hui Yan's eyes were bloodshot, and his face was filled with grief. All people in Nine Gate knew that Hui Yan loved his daughter a lot, and he would not let her suffer any aggravation. Now, she lay on the ground, lifeless. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Father was wrong. If he could have found out earlier, perhaps Ewer would not have ended up dead. It was all his fault." Suddenly, Hui Yin seemed to remember something. He turned around and rushed toward Feng Ruching. Nan Xian raised his hand, swept up a gust of wind, sending Hui Yin flying away violently. However, Hui Yin still got up. He rolled and crawled toward Feng Ruching with hope in his eyes. Please save my daughter. I beg you. I have made many mistakes, and it was all my fault. I was too stupid. I deserve to die. As long as you can save my daughter, I am willing to pay any price. You can kill me or destroy my soul. As long as I can save her. Please." She was his life and his only hope in this world. She was also his only family. Feng Ruching glanced at Hui Yin, who was already dead. "She is gone. Her soul is gone. Her soul is gone." These 4 words, like a heavy hammer, hit Hui Yan's heart hard. He coughed a mouthful of blood, and his body felt like it had aged tens of years, losing all its strength at once. Me for extra chapters. He thought that Hui was just dead, but her soul was also gone. It completely disappeared from this world. Feng Ruching looked at Hui Yin expressionless. She deliberately told Hui Yin this fact because this was what he should bear. Hui Yu died because of him. If he had listened to others and not become a fool, he would have found out long ago that the one in front of him was not his daughter. He had killed his daughter. No, impossible. Hui Yin shook his head and muttered, "She's not going to die. You're lying to me. You must have a way to save her." "Save her?" Feng Ruching sneered. "If it were a year earlier, there are people who could still save her. I'm not the only one who could save her. As long as you have found out that she was not Hui Yu, you could have pulled out Nan Luo's soul, and your daughter only needed some time to recover like a sick child. But it's too late now. Her soul has disappeared. How do you expect me to save her?" Hui Yin got up from the ground and stumbled a bit as he took a few steps back. "Indeed, her soul is gone. How does one save her?" Hui Yin clenched his fists tightly, and his pale body trembled harder. "Then who caused all this?" Hui Yin turned around, and his gaze fell upon Nan Luo's soul. Nan Luo was just a soul now, without a body. But after she saw Hui Yan's gaze, she still trembled as she panicked. "No, it's not me." Hui Yin rushed forward and grabbed Nan Luo. His eyes were filled with rage. "Not you? You harmed my daughter, and now she's dead. I'll send you to her." It was all Nan Luo's fault. It was she who had forcibly possessed Ewer's body, which caused Ewer to die, and her soul to disappear. Therefore, she deserved to die. Faced with Hui Yan's fury, Nan Luo could only curl up, her eyes showing panic as her pleading gaze turned to Sui. Among these people, only Sui was gentle to her. Therefore, she hoped that this time, Sui could save her. Unfortunately, Sui did not even look at her, and those eyes were all cold and expressionless. No! Nan Luo trembled. Her heart was filled with despair as she faced Hui Yan's angry eyes. Hui Yan tightened his grasp, and the soul in his hand was like broken glass, crushed by him as it turned into a light smoke, disappearing from this world. Everyone fell silent, staring at Hui Yan without sympathy. After all, it was all his fault. He asked for it, so he could not blame anyone. Hui Yan squatted next to Hui Yu's body. Tears flowed down his face as he closed his eyes slowly. A few moments later, he opened his eyes and held Hui Yu's hand gently. Hui Yu's hand was very small and thin, so he could not even see her hand after he held it. Your father was too stupid and has harmed you. Only at this moment did Hui Yan understand just how stupid he was. If he had listened to others' advice, he would not have caused his daughter to end up in such a situation. Me for extra chapters. Now that Nan Luo was dead, there was still a culprit left. At this moment, everyone saw Hui Yan stand up, and he quietly pulled out the long sword in his hand. A cold light flashed, making people shiver. Suddenly, he stabbed the sword into his abdomen. Blood spilled out wildly, staining the earth red. His pale body fell downward, and with a thud, he collapsed next to Hui Yu. That gaze carried relief. Father is also the murderer who has harmed you. So Father has come to accompany you. You have been alone for 5 long years. How could Father let you continue living in loneliness? My life in this world is nothing without you. He knew that Hui Yu's soul had disappeared, but in his head, he still felt that she was in another place. Hui Yan gradually closed his eyes. His tears flowed down uncontrollably, soaking his old face. Hui Yan held his daughter's hand till the end. He would not let it go again. The venerable members of Nine Gate had been with Hui Yan for many years, and it still hurt a little to see him in this state after all. However, they all understood that this was the best choice for Hui Yan. Moreover, he was bewitched by Nan Luo and had almost made an unforgivable mistake. Even if Hui Yan did not commit suicide, some people would not let him go. With this way of death, he could still keep the last shred of dignity. Feng Ruqing looked at the dead bodies expressionlessly. She looked calm and emotionless. We've settled with Hui Yan. Are there some accounts that we still have to settle? She turned to look at the people of Nine Gate. A powerful wind lifted from her, carrying a destructive aura. The crowd was greatly stunned, and their faces changed dramatically. All Nine Gate elders subconsciously took a few steps back and looked at Xiao Hui with that pleading gaze. They knew that Xiao Hui was close to Feng Ruqing. If Xiao Hui said something, perhaps Feng Ruqing would put down that grudge. However, Xiao Hui just coldly snorted, did not even look at them, and turned her head to look at the side. The people of Nine Gate panicked. Suddenly, an elder in a gray robe laughed nervously. Maiden Feng, this is all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Feng Ruqing laughed coldly and walked toward them. Because of misunderstanding, your Nine Gate has slaughtered so many people in Tianya's manor. And because of misunderstanding, you have kidnapped my daughter? The elder wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, and he did not know what to say for a moment. His face darkened. I've told her not to hurt anyone. I just want to take our holy maiden back to cultivate. It was indeed my fault that day. I have looked down on Maiden Feng, and I thought that Maiden Feng could not help the little girl in cultivation. Whether I can help my daughter cultivate well or not has nothing to do with you. Even if I can't do it, so what? Is this the reason why you have kidnapped her? Feng Ruqing said coldly. If you do something wrong, you must pay the price. After this, Nine Gate will be removed from the mainland. If it were not for Qiu Hu's sake, if it were not because Nine Gate did take care of Xia Xia in these years, perhaps she would have already ended their life easily. Feng Ruqing also knew that the attack launched in Tianya's manor back then was indeed those people's plan, but the people who sent them to kidnap Xia Xia were still from Nine Gate. Therefore, she could not forgive them for that. Removing Nine Gate from the mainland was already the best option. Grandfather, let's go home. Feng Ruqing turned to look at Tianya and said with a faint smile. 10 years had passed since she came to land of no return. She only returned home once, and then was locked in that place for so many years. She did not know whether her father and the others were fine or not. All right, compared to Feng Ruching, Tianyao was more interested in going home. He had been gone for decades. Mostly after Feng Ruching disappeared, his energy was all spent on looking for her, and he did not feel like going back to Luyun Kingdom. Now that Feng Ruching was back, it was time to go home. Xiao Hui followed behind Feng Ruching. Since Nine Gate no longer exists, there is no need for me to stay here. If Maiden Feng does not mind, I will follow you in the future. All right, Feng Ruching answered smilingly. Nanxian raised his hand and held Feng Ruching's shoulders gently. The man had long snow-white hair and a gentle smile, as handsome as an immortal. Suddenly, a purple light flashed not far away. Feng Ruching turned and saw a familiar face appear before her. The man was still as stunning as before that one could not ignore his beauty. There was a smile on his lips as his eyes lit up. Xiaoming, Feng Ruching smiled faintly. It's been a while. Indeed, I've come to pick you up and take you home. The phrase to pick you up and take you home made Nanxian's face sink slightly, and he wrapped his arm around Feng Ruching's shoulders tightly. Xiaoming ignored him as if he did not see Nanxian. His gaze was fixed upon Feng Ruching. All these years, they have been waiting for you. Well, Feng Ruching smiled. So I should go home. She should not stay in land of no return. She wanted to go back to her Luyun Kingdom. The day Feng Ruching left with her people, everyone in Wushang City came to see her off because they did not know when she would go back. Me for extra chapters. The young girls of Wushang City, each like parting from life and death, cried miserably. However, everyone understood that Feng Ruching would not stay. Not only her, but all the people of Tianya's manor would also leave. In the end, they watched Feng Ruching's figure until it disappeared. Meanwhile, Imperial City of Luyun Kingdom was as calm as ever. Everyone was busy with their work, until someone shouted happily, and all people on the street stopped in their tracks. Even those who were busy with their work put down the tasks at hand. Princess and the others have returned. This voice was heard over the entire Imperial City. Everyone's eyes moistened as they looked at the two people arriving side by side. Their lips trembled, and they could not make any sound. The entire Imperial City fell silent. But many people ran around telling each other the news. The news that Feng Ruching had returned instantly spread throughout the Imperial City. Suddenly, Feng Ruching stopped in her tracks. She raised her eyes and gazed at a group of people approaching her swiftly. The two people at the head of the group were Feng Tianwu, dressed in bright yellow robes, and next to him was the beautiful and gentle Nailin Yen. Feng Tianwu and his wife, both with eyes filled with excitement, looked at the crowd approaching them. Qing'er and Nanxian have returned. Father has also returned. After decades, Father seems to have not changed at all. Oh, the little girl standing next to Qing'er should be your daughter, right? In the blink of an eye, my granddaughter has grown so big. I still remember when Qing'er was still in my womb. Father, Feng Ruching smiled brightly, absolutely beautiful. I'm back. Everything is over. She had returned. Everything had ended. Feng Tianwu smiled happily. Let's go home. Since Feng Ruching left back then, Feng Tianwu had never smiled so brightly. Until she came back to him again. With the return of Feng Ruching and the others, the dark clouds over Luyun Kingdom gradually disappeared, revealing a clear sky. It seemed that the whole world was welcoming them. Songyu Mainland, Luyun Kingdom. 8 years had passed since Feng Ruching's return. Within these 8 years, Feng Tianwu completely entrusted Luyun Kingdom to the second prince, Feng Chun, to travel with Empress Nailin. Feng Chun became the emperor. Feng Ruching was the eldest princess, and Feng Tianwu and Empress Nailin retired from their duty as the kingdom's ruler. However, an incident happened in Luyun Kingdom not long ago. The young princess, Nan Qiyu, secretly took Feng Ruching away. The state preceptor, Nan Xian, was so furious that he drove Nan Qiyu out and strictly forbade her from returning to Luyun Kingdom for a few years. The entire Luyun Kingdom had blacklisted Nan Shiyu, forbidding her to come near to this land. The people in Luyun Kingdom had not seen Nan Shiyu for a few months. The city became quiet, and a lot of people were not used to this in a savage land in the northern part of the mainland. This place was lagging economically. The spirit herbs could be found everywhere on the mainland, but there. In the middle of the savage land, a little girl's face was covered in dirt, and a cute white kitten followed her. The little girl raised her hand to wipe her face, but it became dirtier as her hands were covered with ashes. About, father's gone too far. He did not let mother accompany me out for a while. He exiled me to this place, and I am not allowed to go home. The more the little girl thought about it, the angrier she became, and her face darkened. Little princess, you secretly took eldest princess away. Of course, State Preceptor would be angry. Now that eldest princess is pregnant. He's afraid that you will kidnap her again, so Abao licked its little paws and smiled. Who in the world does not know that Feng Ruching is Nan Xian's life? He won't let her leave him even for a moment. But little princess took her away for half a year. Me for extra chapters. Little princess deliberately avoided State Preceptor, but she could not approach eldest princess again after being captured by him. Hee, Nan Shiyu sneered. Mother doesn't know that he has thrown me to this place. Otherwise, she would have taken me home, and grandmother would not have let him go. The thought of being exiled to this unfamiliar place made her want to cry. Let's find our way home now, shall we? Little princess, State Preceptor will not let you go back again. I don't care. Well, think about that after we leave this place. But this place is too far from home, and there are no people here. It seems like it's not easy to find a way home. Nan Shiyu sighed. She hugged her knees and lowered her head. Other families' fathers love their children, but little Prince's father, he's really a bit different. Abao rolled its eyes. But what happened to little princess today was all because of her fault. She knew that State Preceptor would be angry, but she still wanted to take eldest princess away. Abao, I underestimated father before. If I had run further away, maybe it would have taken him some time to find us. Nan Shiyu frowned, and she suddenly laughed loudly as she stood up from the ground. Give me another chance, and I will never be found by him again for 2 or 3 years. Abao rolled its eyes again, ignoring Nan Kai's words. Nan Shiyu patted her dress and sat up from the ground. She raised her hand and wiped the dirty stain on her face and said, Abao, let's go. All right, little princess. The kitten elegantly licked its paws and leaped into Nan Kai's arms. This savage land was as barren as one could see at a glance. The sun in the sky was a little warm. Nan Shiyu frowned. There is no one here, and it's not easy to leave this place. Bao, I am beginning to doubt if I am even his child. Nan Shiyu frowned and said earnestly, how could he leave me here in this uninhabited place? Abao looked at Nan Shiyu and said with some hesitation, maybe State Preceptor is afraid that if he throws you into a city, you will blow up the whole city. So, only here is the safest for you. Nan Kai's expression changed dramatically. I am not Qing Han. Father is too much. Nan Shiyu stomped her foot and grunted as she continued walking forward. She did not believe that she would not be able to leave this savage land. Nan Shiyu did not know how long she had been walking here, but she only remembered that she had not even met a bird along the way. This place was really deserted. No wonder her father would exile her to this place. Suddenly, Nan Shiyu stopped in her tracks. She saw a group of people in front of her. A middle-aged man led the group, followed by attendants carrying a sedan chair and walking extremely slow. Finally, there are people here. Nan Kai's heart flashed with joy. Her eyes lit up as she rushed toward that group of people. Not far away, the group of people walking on the road saw a girl rushing toward them. Me for extra chapters. The girl was wearing a dirty white dress, and her face was so gray and stained that it was impossible to see her real face. The little girl was holding an adorable, snow-white kitten in her arms. The middle-aged man raised his hand, signaling the crowd to stop. He looked at the girl in front of him expressionlessly and said coldly, "What does this girl want from us?" Nan Chiyu smiled brightly. "My Bao and I are lost. I don't know how to get out from here. Can you take us with you?" She did not ask these people to show her the way. Even if they pointed the way, she would still not be able to get out. After all, she rarely left Luyun Kingdom, and she could not even distinguish between the southeast and the northwest. Because of this, Nancien had exiled her far away from home, so she could not get back for at least 2 to 3 years. "No," the middle-aged man's face was cold. "We still have urgent matters and cannot bring you along." After Nan Chiyu heard this, she was a little lost. "These people are not willing to take me with them, and I can't force them. Ah Bao, we'd better find our way." She bit her lip pitifully and turned around slowly, wanting to leave. Suddenly, a clear voice came from the group behind her, making Nan Chiyu stop in her tracks. "General Lin, bring her along. It's not very safe for a young girl to be alone here." But General Lin was hesitant. He frowned, and he seemed reluctant. "Don't worry. I can see that this girl is not a bad person." This voice was clear and beautiful. It stunned Nan Chiyu. She looked at the sedan chair, and the door was slowly lifted open. From a door, she could see a young man in a long green robe. He smiled faintly, and his face was handsome but very pale. It made one's heart ache. Nan Chiyu looked at the young man in front of her in a daze, and she felt that the young man was a little too good-looking. However, after too many years of living with Nancien, who was as handsome as a mortal, she quickly returned to her senses. She pursed her lips and said pitifully, "I'm lost." The young man smiled. "It's all right. You can walk with us, but we have to settle something first, and when it's settled, they'll send you on your way." "Oh, all right." Nan Chiyu nodded. A smile finally appeared on her face. Her smile was as bright as sunshine, dispersing the gloom in the sky. Looking at the smile on the little girl's face, the young man's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, he quickly regained his senses and smiled bitterly. He had never left the palace and rarely interacted with others. Therefore, after seeing this little girl, he was a little excited. But a person like him was not in any position to keep a girl with such a bright smile by his side. "Are you not feeling well?" Nan Chiyu seemed to notice something. She frowned and looked up at the young man. The young man smiled and nodded. "Well, I'm a little unwell, but it'll be fine soon if there are no accidents." "What if there's an accident?" "If there's an accident, I will not be able to get well for the rest of my life." Even the young man did not understand why he could tell so much to this little girl when they had obviously just met. Probably because he had not spoken to anyone for a long time or even seen the sunlight for a long time. Me for extra chapters. It was hard to meet a little girl like her, so he could not help but want to say a few more words. "You'll be fine." And Chiyu smiled brightly. "This guy looks like a good man, so I'll ask Mother to save him as a reward for his kindness in sending me on my way." After all, she could not just allow others to contribute for nothing, so she would help this young man get better. The young man's smile faded, and he said, "Thank you. Young girl, it's a bit hot outside. How about you come in and sit here with me? I have a big sedan chair. Even 10 people can fit in this sedan chair." Indeed, this sedan chair had a lot of space, so she would not have too much contact with him. If the space was too narrow, there was no guarantee that they would not be too close. "Really?" Ninkaya's eyes lit up. She did not think so much about it, smiled, and said, "Yes, thank you. I'm getting tired of walking. Now I can take a break." "Your Highness." General Lin's face darkened. His Highness is special, and this little girl has suddenly come out of nowhere. Who knows what her identity is? Moreover, how could a girl from an ordinary family come to such a place? She must have malicious intent. "Your Highness, you rarely see the world, and you do not understand the danger of the human heart. For your safety, it is better not to meddle in this matter, or else—" "Enough." The young man frowned impatiently. "You do not need to meddle in my decision." General Lin opened his mouth, wanting to say something. However, after seeing the young man's persistence, He held back his words and turned around helplessly. My name is Murong Qing. The young man stretched out his hand toward Nan Qiyu and smiled faintly. Sunlight shone upon his handsome face. Oh, Nan Qiyu looked at the young man's hand and frowned. Mother said I cannot just let boys touch me. Therefore, she grabbed A Bao's little paw and touched the young man's hand. 1 inch, my name is Xia Xia, and this is my cat A Bao. Meow. A Bao mewed obediently. General Lin's face darkened when he saw Nan Kai's action. Is this little girl displaying contempt toward His Highness? His Highness was kind enough to approach her, but she does this to him? Murong Qing did not think much about it. He smiled faintly as he said, Maiden Xia, come in. It's too hot outside. You look weak, and it's not good to stay under the sun for a long time. Weak? Nan Qiyu was somewhat at a loss. Is he talking about me? Nan Qiyu puffed up her cheeks and said, I'm not weak. I'm very strong. Looking at such a soft and cute little girl, the smile on Murong Qing's face widened. Come on board. He shook his sleeves and walked into the sedan chair. Nan Qiyu was indeed too lazy to walk, and she did not have the heart to let A Bao carry her. Therefore, Nan Qiyu followed the young man into the sedan chair. The sedan chair was really huge, but Nan Qiyu still remembered Feng Rooking's words to keep a distance from boys. She then put her hand on her cheek, looking out the window. A Bao lay next to her, resting. Murong Qing's gaze was fixed upon Nan Qiyu. He smiled gently as he watched her unblinkingly. It seemed me for extra chapters. He had never seen an adorable girl like her. Even just looking at her face made him feel happy. This was something that he had never felt since he fell ill. If he could, he wanted to protect her smile until the end of his life. However, even Murong Qing did not understand why he felt this way when they had just met for the first time. Until many years later, he suddenly understood that many things were already predetermined from the beginning. However, the only thing he could do in this life was to protect her smile at all costs. What? Nan Qiyu turned and met Murong Qing's gaze. She frowned as she asked, Why do you keep staring at me? The young girl's voice was still pleasant even when she was questioning him. Murong Qing took out a handkerchief and handed it to Nan Qiyu. Your face is dirty. Clean it. Nan Qiyu pouted. Does he despise me? So he doesn't like to see the dirt on my face. However, looking at the handkerchief handed to her by the young man, Nan Qiyu was silent for a moment, but still took it and said, Thank you. This handkerchief was very clean with the scent of a unique herb on the young man's body. Perhaps the young man had been taking many herbs for a long time. Nan Qiyu took out her water bottle, poured some water on the handkerchief, and then wiped the dirt on her small face. A beautiful and delicate face appeared to the young man after Nan Qiyu wiped the dust off her face. The young man looked a little dumbfounded. This little girl was so beautiful with fair skin and delicate features like a painting. So beautiful that people could not take their eyes off of her. Nan Qiyu saw that Murong Qing had been staring at her face. She touched her face, confused. I have not wiped it clean. It is clean. The young man lowered his head, and his face started to turn red, seemingly a little shy. Since he was young, he rarely had contact with people. He was always in the palace, not to mention that now in front of him was such a good-looking girl. Oh, Nan Qiyu held her chin with her hand. A light flashed in her big, beautiful eyes. By the way, what are you doing here in this savage land? We're looking for Flower King. Flower King? Well, the physician said that there's a Flower King here. The fruit can cure me, but that fruit is useless after leaving the flower for an hour. So it cannot be taken back to the palace, and I must go in person. Nan Qiyu looked at the young man with some confusion. How come I have not heard of any fruit that becomes inedible in 1 hour after leaving the mother plant? I'm not sure. The imperial physician said that, but I just heard on the way here that a silver wolf guards the flower. The king of silver wolves. I'm afraid this journey will be full of danger. Silver wolf. Nan Qiyu frowned. A figure vaguely emerged in her mind, but it was too vague and too long ago, so she could not recall it. She vaguely remembered that. Was it a big dog? Wolves and dogs were the same ancestor 500 years ago. Otherwise, the snow wolf would not have learned to bark. So, every time she heard about wolves, she would think of a dog. Don't worry, just leave this to me. Nanchiyu swore and patted her chest. I can help you. Me for extra chapters. You, the young man smiled. That wolf is so fierce. Nanchiyu was a bit distressed. She could not tell Murong Qing that the spirit beasts were all obedient to her. She looked at the kitten lying next to her, and her eyes lit up. A Bao is fierce too. It can help us. A Bao was stunned. A Bao was just about to refute Nanchiyu when it suddenly noticed that Murong Qing was scanning it as if he did not believe its fierceness. It immediately meowed fiercely and scratched Murong Qing. Fortunately, Murong Qing blocked his handsome face with his hand, and the claw scratched the back of his hand, leaving a bloody scratch. A Bao. Nanchiyu frowned and scolded. What are you doing? A Bao grunted and flopped proudly on the chair. This human is looking down at me, so I have to show him how fierce I am. A Bao. Maiden Xia Xia. Murong Qing smiled. I'm fine. No need to blame it. Oh, that's good. Nanchiyu sighed in relief. I was afraid you would make me pay for it, so it's better if I scold A Bao first. Murong Qing was speechless. He somewhat felt that Xia Xia was too cute, completely different from the other women he had met in his father's palace. He thought about it for a moment and said, Don't worry. I have money, and if you don't have money, I can give some to you. I have a lot of money to spend. Nanchiyu frowned. No, you just don't have to ask me for compensation. I don't want your money. Mother said only to take what belongs to you, and those who get free money will be unlucky. Murong Qing was speechless. This is not considered free money, right? He laughed helplessly, but did not say more. Even Murong Qing did not understand why he would say such words to her when it was obviously the first time they met. He did not know that Nanchiyu refused him not just because of the unfortunate thing, but also because he would not be the one in her heart. Until after that person appeared, she would willingly accept all of his. In a desert land, Flower King was curled up, hiding his side. It looked somewhat timid before the silver wolf, somewhat afraid. Ever since it met the Wolf King hiding here to recover from its injuries 3 years ago, it had never been able to leave this place. The Wolf King often lay not far away, watching it. Whenever it tried to escape, the Wolf King would beat it up hard. The more it thought about it, the more aggrieved it was. If it could cry, perhaps its tears would have turned into a river. The silver wolf got up from the ground. Its fur was stunning. If it could be stripped down to a piece of clothing, the one who wore it would become the center of attention. The wolf's blue eyes were clear and beautiful, but its gaze was as cold as a knife when it looked at Flower King. Flower King stretched its small head and shrank back again, pitifully. In 3 more days, you will be able to bloom. The Wolf King's clear and clean voice made Flower King tremble in fear. Unfortunately, my wound is not yet healed. Flower King was speechless. But it's fine. After you bloom, they'll go find her. It once heard that little girls love flowers. Me for extra chapters. And Flower King. It should be more pleasing to the eye than ordinary flowers. But it did not know whether that little girl still remembered it or not. Every time it thought of her, the Wolf King's eyes would turn gentle, and a bright smile would appear on its face. This was the first time in 3 years that Flower King saw the Wolf King smile. It was so scared that it almost jumped up, wishing to disappear immediately. However, the Wolf King had been guarding it for 3 years. In these 3 years, its life was worse than death. Suddenly, the Wolf King's ears twitched. A cold light flashed in its blue eyes, sneering. There are humans again. 2 years ago, someone spread the news about Flower King, and many people came to look for it. Even though it never recovered from its injuries, it was more than enough to deal with these people. Initially, according to its former nature, it would kill any human who came to compete for the things it was guarding. However, somehow, whenever it wanted to kill them, an innocent little face would emerge in its mind. The little girl would smile gently, and her voice was so pleasant, just like before, "Big doggy." With that, in that instant, its heart would soften. The little girl was human, and she might hate to see others killed. That was why it only drove those greedy people away and did not hurt them. Because of this, more people returned just to compete for Flower King. Just then, the sounds of horse hooves could be heard coming from the back. The Wolf King frowned. A cold light flashed in its eyes. Those humans are coming again. It glanced warningly at Flower King, and only after seeing the flower trembling did it turn around and look at the people coming behind it. There are still a few days left before the flower will bloom, and I won't let humans steal it away. It wanted to bring the flower to the little girl. Among that group of people, the leader was a middle-aged man with cold and fierce eyes filled with murderous intent. However, the Wolf King only sneered in disdain. Another group of weak humans. Some of them looked really confident, and they all came to snatch its flower away. Go away. This is not the place for you to be. The Wolf King's voice was raspy. It was actually somewhat lovely to listen to. General Lin had just stopped when he heard these words from the Wolf King, and his expression changed dramatically. This wolf can talk. Why didn't the imperial physician mention it? A wolf that can talk, how strong is it? But that flower is the only hope to rescue His Highness. I can't give up. General Lin gritted his teeth. Your Highness, this wolf is somewhat strong. You must not come down. Well, think of a way to lure it away and then take the flower from it. The spirit beasts are not smart enough. We can't fight it, but we can track it. The Wolf King was speechless, its eyes bloodshot, gradually turning cold. These humans are too arrogant. Even if it had not recovered from its injuries today, it was still easy to deal with these people. Humans, the Wolf King raised its gaze proudly and fixed its gaze upon the group of people in front of it. It's better if you leave now. I don't want to kill anyone for her sake, but I also can't allow anyone to snatch the things under my guard. General Lin seemed to have sensed that the wolf would kill them. Cold sweat poured down his forehead, but he still did not take half a step back. Me for extra chapters. Perhaps to him, for the sake of His Highness, no matter how difficult it was, he had to take it head on. He gritted his teeth and said go. However, just as he said that, a clear voice came from inside the sedan chair. Wait, let me talk to it. General Lin frowned impatiently, and there was even some disdain in his eyes. What does this little girl think the wolf is? A dog she raises at home? Does she want to talk to it? Ridiculous. However, without waiting for anyone to stop her, the little girl had already stepped out of the sedan chair. Her long snow-colored dress was still dirty, but her small face was so beautiful that it was hard to ignore. The little girl's eyes were as clear as water as she walked out smilingly. The Wolf King stopped, and its proud gaze fell upon the little girl. The moment it saw the little girl, its heart felt like it was hit hard. It almost stopped beating. Maiden Xia Xia. General Lin's face turned cold. Hurry back. This is not a place for you to be. The wolf is not a dog. How reasonable do you think it can be? Then Chiyu seemed to hate what General Lin said. Her expression darkened. So what if it's a wolf? It looks like a good wolf. Besides, this wolf looks like a dog. From the moment Nan Shiyu appeared, the Wolf King's gaze was only fixed upon her and never moved away. For 10 years, her scent had remained in its mind. It had never forgotten it. It wished that one day, the moment it met her, she could recognize it at a glance. But it seemed like she did not remember it. The Wolf King looked somewhat disappointed. After all, it had remembered her for so many years, but in the end, she had forgotten it. Nan Shiyu walked toward the Wolf King. Murong Qing came down from the sedan chair and saw Nan Shiyu walking toward the Wolf King. His heart tightened. Maiden Xia Xia, it's dangerous. Don't go. However, Xia Xia did not seem to hear him and continued walking toward the Wolf King. Her pace was gentle, but it landed heavily on the Wolf King's heart. Wolfie, can you give me that flower? Xia Xia blinked and smiled brightly. The Wolf King immediately cheered up after hearing Xia Xia's words. It turned around, walked to Flower King, grabbed it with one bite, and walked toward Xia Xia. Xia Xia smiled happily. She hugged the Wolf King and kissed its forehead. The Wolf King was stunned by the kiss, as if it had been struck by electricity. It froze, staring at Xia Xia dumbly. Murong Qing saw the Wolf King gave Flower King to Nan Qiyu, and a doubt flashed in his eyes. Everyone said that the Wolf King was fierce, but why was he so gentle to Maiden Xia Xia? He could not figure out and simply stopped thinking about it. Maybe Maiden Xia Xia has a charm that attracts spirit beasts. Flower King trembled when it was handed over to Xia Xia by the Wolf King. If it were not for the Wolf King staring at it from the side, it would have jumped down and run away. But when will this flower bear fruit? Nan Qiyu turned to Murong Qing and looked at him blankly. Murong Qing was silent for a few moments. I'm not sure. Why don't we bring it back first? All right. Nan Qiyu blinked. She did not know if the fruit was effective, but at least she had to wait for Murong Qing to recover before she could leave. She would have been lost in this savage land had Murong Qing not helped her. My father doesn't want me anyway, so we'll follow you back first. He'll leave when you have recovered. Me for extra chapters. The little girl looked so pitiful when she said that her father did not want her anymore. The Wolf King followed Nan Qiyu, its face expressionless. Nan Qiyu turned to look at the Wolf King, confused. Are you going to go with me? The Wolf King nodded and gently responded, Machem, it doesn't matter if you don't remember me. I only want to protect you in this life. Your Highness, General Lin's expression darkened. The Wolf King was too dangerous. If we brought this back and it went crazy, I'm afraid that the whole imperial city would suffer. Murong Qing smiled. The Wolf King has handed the flower to us. Moreover, Maiden Xia Xia likes it, so let's bring it back. General Lin sighed and looked at Murong Qing helplessly. After all, he knew his status, and if His Highness had agreed, there was no way General Lin could stop him. However, he felt that the Wolf King's gaze toward Murong Qing was filled with hatred. It was as if Murong Qing had deliberately snatched away something that belonged to him. The Wolf King gave Flower King on its own. It's not like we snatched the flower from it. So why is it looking at His Highness so fiercely? It's already late. We should go back now. Maiden Xia Xia, you should come into the sedan chair with me. Murong Qing smiled shyly. No need. Without waiting for Nan Qiyu to step onto the sedan chair, the Wolf King spoke coldly. The moment it turned to look at Nan Qiyu, its eyes became a lot gentler. He'll just carry you. All right. Nan Qiyu smiled brightly. Perhaps it was the influence given to her by Feng Ruqing since childhood that made her comfortable to get close to the spirit beasts. Compared to sitting in the sedan chair with Murong Qing, she was more willing to follow the Wolf King. Murong Qing did not force Nan Qiyu. He just looked at the Wolf King with mixed emotions, but he did not think much about it. He then turned around and smiled faintly. It's getting late. Let's go back. General Lin's throat was a little hoarse as he looked at the Wolf King and said, but if we bring back this wolf, it might go crazy. The Wolf King's gaze sank. Nan Qiyu pouted unhappily. The wolf won't go crazy. It's a spirit beast, and it can think like us. The difference between a spirit beast and an ordinary beast was that a spirit beast could think like a human and would not attack other people recklessly. Unless someone provoked it first, General Lin, Murong Qing frowned. I trust Maiden Xia Xia. General Lin sighed and smiled bitterly. He had always felt that the spirit beasts were still dangerous to people, but he had no choice and could only obey the order. Nan Qiyu jumped onto the wolf's back. The little girl's face was stunningly beautiful when she smiled. He said he knew how to leave this place. I'm lost, and he's willing to help me, so I have to wait for him to recover before leaving. When I leave, he'll bring you home. I have many spirit beasts at home that can keep you company. The Wolf King smiled gently. All right. Oh, my name is Ming. Ming. Don't you have a last name? Then, your name will be Nan Ming. All right. It seemed that no matter what she said, the Wolf King would always agree with her. Me for extra chapters. General Lin's face darkened. He did not know why this wolf was following this little girl, but it was simply ridiculous for this little girl to say that her family raised many spirit beasts. Spirit beasts preferred freedom and would never want to be kept at home. It must be just some ordinary little pets that she thought were spirit beasts. Perhaps, after this wolf followed her, Those small pets might not even be enough to be eaten by it. Nanchiyu kissed the Wolf King's head smilingly. You're so pretty. I like you. The Wolf King lowered its gaze. Flower King, who was shivering at the side, suddenly felt that its face turned a little red. Murong-Ching pursed his lips enviously. Xia had agreed to go home with him, but he felt like she did not really trust him. However, Xia had just met the wolf, and she already had such a good relationship with it. Perhaps this was the difference between animals and people. She could easily get along with the spirit beasts, but it was normal to be a little wary of people. Moreover, the wolf was no different from a dog in her eyes. Of course, she would feel more comfortable with it. Flower King curled up, wishing to disappear, afraid that these people would eat it. That had become a lifelong nightmare for it since it met the Wolf King. Your Highness, let's go. General Lin did not even look at Nanchiyu. To him, this girl was nothing but good-looking, so he did not understand why Murong-Ching would be so nice to a girl he had just met. Yun-Ching Kingdom. It was a small kingdom with very little interaction with the outside world. At this moment, within the imperial palace of Yun-Ching Kingdom, a beautiful woman with a light yellow dress walked to the imperial garden smilingly. How long has Murong-Ching been away? Empress, it has been almost half a month. Half a month, the Empress lowered her gaze. A cold light flashed in her eyes. However, this cold light disappeared quickly, and then a smile was plastered upon that noble face again. He should have been back by now. I don't know if something has happened to him out there. The Empress smiled faintly. Let's go. I have to see the Emperor. Murong-Ching was like a thorn in her heart. She had to endure the pain if she did not pull it out. Inside the imperial study room, a middle-aged man in a dragon robe sat on a throne. His face was cold as he read through a memo in his hand. Just at this moment, a eunuch's voice was heard from outside the room. Emperor, the Empress requests to see you. Hearing that the Empress was there, Murong-Yang frowned and said, Let her in. The guard pushed open the door. Murong-Yang looked up at the woman who had just entered through the door. His face remained expressionless. No one could read any emotion from it. Empress, is there something wrong? The Empress pursed her lips and smiled faintly. Emperor, Qinger has been gone for such a long time now and has not returned yet. I'm worried. Should I send out a search team to look for Qinger? Murong-Yang replied indifferently. The people I sent to follow Qinger are all the skilled masters. General Lin also brought troops to protect him, so there is no need for you to go there yourself. Me for extra chapters. If he allowed her to go and something were to happen to her, those people would have to protect her, and this meant less manpower to keep Qinger safe. Moreover, he believed in General Lin's capabilities. Emperor, the Empress smiled bitterly. Before my sister died, I promised her that I would take good care of Qinger. I am now Qinger's mother and her great-aunt. How can I just sit back and do nothing? If it weren't for Qinger's health, fearing that he wouldn't last long, and State Preceptor said that he must go on his own to get Flower King, I would never have allowed him to go to that savage land. When Murong-Yang heard this from the Empress, his expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained emotionless. I understand your feelings. Qinger is a good man. I believe that he will be fine and will return safely. The Empress smirked. The one guarding Flower King is the strong and fierce Wolf King. Perhaps Murong-Ching will not come back this time. And don't blame me for this back then. She fell in love with the Emperor, but he wanted to marry Feng Ying, who had passed away early. Fortunately, she and Feng Ying were good friends. Therefore, before Feng Ying passed away, she had asked the Emperor to marry her as his new queen to protect her son. However, Feng Ying did not know that she had long been jealous of her. She was so in love with Murong-Yang. How could she allow a son who was not her blood and flesh to remain in the world? Therefore, she had asked State Preceptor to trick Murong-Ching into going to the savage land. And now, he must have been eaten by the wolf. This time, she had come to the Emperor just to show her fake concern. She already knew that the Emperor would never allow her to go to Murong-Ching. Even if he did agree, she would only go there to bring back his son's dead body. Emperor, I'll take my leave now. I believe that Qing'er will return safely. The Empress smiled. All right, you can go now. The Emperor waved his hand expressionlessly. The Empress turned around and left. However, just as she stepped out of the imperial study room, a palace servant hurriedly came up to her and reported respectfully, Empress, the prince has returned. What? The Empress' face changed dramatically. A cold light flashed in her eyes as she said coldly, Did you just say that he has returned? Impossible. The Wolf King is so powerful. He can't have returned safely. The prince has returned and brought a girl back. She has now entered the prince's residence. They will probably come to meet the emperor later. The palace servant lowered her head, not daring to look directly at the empress. The empress smiled coldly. He brought a girl back? Empress, according to the report, the prince seems to like that girl. He had arranged for her to stay at his place before coming to the palace, so he must have feelings for her. That's good. This time, she failed to kill Murong Qing in the Savage Land, but there were always other opportunities. She would never let him ruin her plan. Let's go. I want to see what kind of girl can make Murong Qing fall in love and bring her back here. She lowered her gaze, hiding the dark light in her eyes. The prince's residence was located in a quiet street, far from the busy city. Murong Qing left the palace after the former empress passed away. He felt that the palace's environment was not very suitable for him to recuperate, and the emperor had allowed him to leave the palace. Murong Qing chose this place on his own. It was quiet, and no one would disturb him. Moreover, Murong Qing's health had not improved in these few years. The emperor and the current empress did not allow him to interact with other people, so he had no friends. The emperor did not allow people to disturb him for his health. As for the empress, for extra chapters. No one knew what her real purpose was. Wolfie. The little girl held her cheeks with her hands. She blinked and gazed at the beautiful Wolf King in front of her. Her smile was as bright as the sunshine, and it instantly shone into its heart. Are you really going to be here with me? MHM. The Wolf King nodded slightly, its voice low. The little girl smiled. I'll tell you a secret. My father doesn't want me anymore. I can't go back home. Otherwise, I would not have followed Murong Qing to this place. My father abandoned me too quickly, and I did not GT to prepare some money, so I can only stay in here for now. When my mother knows where I am, she will come to bring me home. A Bao, who was lying next to the little girl, huffed. Little Princess is staying here because of Murong Qing's conditions. He has taken Little Princess out of the Savage Land and brought her here. Therefore, Little Princess can't just leave without repaying his kindness. However, State Preceptor did not want Little Princess anymore, so she has nowhere to go. State Preceptor said that Little Princess is not allowed to set foot in Luyan Kingdom, so she could only wait for Eldest Princess to come and take her home. I will stay with you. The Wolf King squatted on the ground. Even its lying down movement was so elegant and beautiful it was difficult to look away. Nanshiyu looked at the Wolf King and then turned to Ah Bao, who looked like a pug, and suddenly she felt like Ah Bao was a little ugly compared to the Wolf King. Just then, a voice was suddenly heard from up ahead. Nanshiyu raised her gaze, confused. The Empress has arrived. This voice was somewhat shrill, cutting through the heavy air and into Nan Kai's ears. Nanshiyu looked up and saw a noble woman ambling forward, surrounded by a group of palace servants and eunuchs. The woman looked so elegant, with an expressionless face and a bit of arrogance in her brows. Even the Wolf King, crouching on the ground, immediately got up after seeing the woman. Its eyes turned cold. Nan Kai's eyes filled up with cautiousness as she felt that this woman came with an evil intention. Do you need something here? This little girl is so beautiful. The Empress had lived in the palace with many beauties, but she had never seen such a stunningly beautiful girl like Nanshiyu. Even she, as a woman, was a little stunned when she looked at her. No wonder Murong Qing brought her back. Such a woman is too good at bewitching people's minds. How dare you? A palace servant next to her sternly shouted, Why aren't you kneeling when you see the Empress? Nankai's face sank slightly. She pursed her lips and looked a little annoyed. However, the Empress raised her hand and smiled. No need to be so polite. Little girl, you're the girl Qinger brought back this time. You are indeed beautiful and pleasing to the eye. She reached out to hold Nankai's hand. However, Nan Shiyu did not like to be touched by strangers since she was young. She raised her hand to slap away the Empress' hand and took a few steps back. The Empress' hand froze in midair. Her face darkened. This little girl is beautiful but rude. It seems like Murong Qing likes her only because of her appearance. Little girl, am the Empress of this kingdom and also Qinger's mother. Every girl in this world wanted to win her heart. Even if Qinger was not well, at least he was still a prince. All young girls wished to be with him. Me for extra chapters. Oh, Nanchi responded expressionlessly. It's better if you go back first, because Murong Qing is not here. If you want to find him, you have to come back later. The person in front of her was Murong Qing's mother, but she made Nanchi feel uncomfortable. I don't like this woman. She looks like those sultry bitches who always surround Brother Fu Chun all the time. Who do they think they are? Brother Fu Chun only likes Qing Han, but there are always people with impure hearts who want to be with him because he's a spirit herb. The Empress stiffened and was also a little angry. However, she understood that now was not the time to cause trouble. Little girl, if you want to marry into the imperial family, you have to get my permission first. Qingga has always been filial. Do you think he will take you as his wife if I disagree? A silver light suddenly flashed as soon as the Empress spoke. The Empress felt pain and fell backward. Her people did not have the time to hold her, and she directly hit the wall and almost broke her bones. Empress! The palace servants were shocked and hurriedly went forward to help the Empress up. Those guards also drew their weapons in their hands. However, when they saw that the one standing in front of them was a wolf, all of them did not dare to attack, and their hands were trembling a little. How dare you? The Empress stood up from the ground and pointed at Nanchi angrily. Seeing that the Wolf King wanted to make a move, the young girl quickly stopped it. Little Wolfie, the Wolf King stopped. It glanced at the Empress' face coldly as it walked toward Nanchi. Its pace was firm like a mighty king. The Empress' expression was slightly stiff. Somehow, she felt that this Wolf King's posture was even more domineering than the Emperor's. If it were not for this wolf, she would have already taught this little girl the rules properly. She needed to understand the palace rules if she wanted to marry into the imperial family. Nanchi smiled as she walked toward the Empress. She somewhat deliberately lowered her head, looking down at the Empress. My little Wolfie is not very good-tempered. Of course, I also do not like people pointing their fingers at me. The little girl smiled. So, if you dare to point your finger at me again, I don't care if you're Murong Qing's mother. I will make you lose a finger. The Empress' face turned pale. Ever since she married into the palace, everyone had respected her. All the favorite concubines in the palace did not dare to disrespect her. It was because she was the former Empress' closest friend. The Emperor loved the former Empress. It was because of this relationship she became the new Empress, and the Emperor also obeyed her in everything and would never let anyone bully her. Therefore, it had been a long time since anyone had dared to treat her with such disrespect. Little girl, this is my palace, and I am the Empress. Oh, Nanchi shrugged. But I don't like you. My wolf and my cat will eat whoever I don't like. The Wolf King turned to look at the Empress coldly. Ah Bao, who was lying on the ground taking a nap, also raised its head. Although it was not as ruthless as the Wolf King, one could still feel its displeasure. Me for extra chapters. The Empress was furious, but the Wolf King had really scared her just now, so she did not dare to act rashly again. Moreover, the Wolf King looked so powerful and somewhat familiar. The Empress frowned, pondered for a moment, and her face instantly turned paler. Isn't this the wolf that was guarding Flower King? She had seen a portrait of it before, and this wolf looked just like the one in the portrait. No wonder Murong Qing could come back safely this time. This little girl has actually tamed this wolf. Perhaps, with her beauty? The Empress sneered. Such a vixen. She even wants the spirit beast, the same as Murong Qing's late mother. Both like to seduce men, a group of bitches. The Empress did not dare to be as reckless as before after she knew the wolf's identity. She then smiled faintly. Little girl, I was just joking with you. You're Chinger's guest, and of course, you're my guest too. I'm just afraid that you will be in trouble if you don't understand the palace's rules. I just want to remind you kindly. After all, you will have to face more royal women in the future, and if you do not know the rules, people will not respect you here. Nan Kai's face gradually sank. She silently grabbed a brick and waited. However, the Empress was lucky today. Just as Nan Shiyu was planning to smash her head, a voice came from outside the courtyard. Aunt, what are you doing here? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.